was gonna freak you. 3 minutes disappeared quick. Are we good? You're live. So welcome to our public meeting. The council chambers in person, live streamed electronically, Tuesday, September 17th at 6 p.m. Opening of our meeting is the land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Introduction. The purpose of this public meeting is to hear the following application for zoning bylaw amendment. ZB 24-002, Doyle, McMillan, and Lafreniere. The planner will provide a brief overview of the file. The applicant will be given an opportunity to explain the need for the zoning bylaw amendment. Then any person or any public body in opposition and then in favor to the application will be heard. If a person or public body does not make oral or written submissions at a public meeting or does not make written submissions to the Township of Montague before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council with respect to the below listed application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, or you must sign the attendance list provided at tonight's meeting. This will also entitle you to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the date the bylaw is passed. An appeal to the tribunal may be filed with the clerk of the Township of Montague by any party entitled to do so, not later than 20 days after the date that the notice of decision was given. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee. So now there's disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof. Approval of the agenda. I can have a mover. Seconder, Jim. All in favor? And that carried. And I'll now pass that over to Kristen.
Good evening, council, members of the public. The subject property that is the subject of this application is a 14.7 hectare or 36.3 acre property, municipally known as 435 Wood Road, and is the subject of an ongoing consent application. The property is currently developed with an existing dwelling, garage, and outbuildings. The proposed rezoning is for the 1.5 hectare or 3.71 acre severed parcel of land and is a condition of consent application B 24012. The need for the rezoning relates to the minimum distance separation calculation for a livestock facility at a nearby property known as 384 Wood Road. As part of the submission process for lot creation, there is a requirement for the applicant to investigate all livestock facilities within 750 meters of the lot proposed to be created. This is done to determine if there will be any land compatibility issues. Livestock operations can result in negative health impacts, for example, drinking water contamination, and can also result in nuisance complaints, sounds and smells associated with livestock operations for nearby residential land uses that are too close to a livestock facility. And on the reverse side, it's unfair for a livestock operator to be subjected to complaints from residents related to their normal farm operations. So OMAFRA, Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, developed a formula that considers the number of livestock in a facility, the size of that facility, and the way that the manure is stored. And those numbers are all compiled, and that creates a building-based calculation distance. And that is done to create the least negative impact on nearby residential land use. So based on the information provided by the owner of 384 Wood Road, the calculated building-based distance from their livestock facility impacts the front corner of the proposed severed lot. The sketch that's attached to this report illustrates this minimum distance separation It isn't very large, and within that circle, no sensitive land use, which means living space or well, is permitted to be built within this area. So you could build an accessory use such as a shed, garage, deck, gazebo. You could have a pool, but you can't have the living space of a house or the well within that circle. And the rezoning of the severed lot will contain provisions to this effect. Notice of this application was provided pursuant to the Planning Act, was mailed to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands, was emailed to all required agencies in the regulations posted on the township's website and at the subject property by the applicants. No comments or concerns have been received from any circulated landowners, and Bridge Gas and RVCA both contacted the township and advised that they had no concerns. The application was also circulated to township staff for review. No concerns were raised in that regard. Report will be brought by staff to the October 1st council meeting, addressing any recommendations that result from this evening's meeting. And that is the extent of my comments, so we can ask the applicant if they want to say anything. Not sure if the applicant wants to speak, you don't have to. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. I said it all in one breath. And again, there were no oral or written submissions provided, like of any concern with respect to this application. So I guess at this point, we can go for adjournment, and then a report will be brought to the October 1st meeting. Unless you have questions.
That's right. Council, any questions? Yeah, no, okay.
So I guess we need a motion to.
Yeah. So if I can have a mover, okay, and a seconder. So I've got Jeff and I've got Gerald.
Okay.
Thank you. At 6:07.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck with your future bill.
That was quick.
Okay.
It took me longer to get here.
And now we'll move into a regular meeting of council. So congratulations to our fire association on another successful pit barbecue. Now, so if we could pass that on to all the members and supporting family members as well that were there helping. That was great. Thank you. Also, we have our writing machines event at the airport on Saturday, September 28th from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. And a reminder to follow the township social media for all upcoming events. So our land acknowledgement, the council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located, this meeting is being held, is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the regular meeting of council agenda dated September 17th, 2024 be amended this date to amend the Public Works Manager Hiring Committee report and to add report 3C extension of winter dust, stone dust tender. All in favor? And that's carried. Disclosure of interest now or at any time during our meeting. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that the minutes of the previous regular meeting dated September 3rd, 2024 be approved as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising from our previous? We have no delegations or deputations. Our report of municipal officers. I'm gonna send you first with our Public Works Manager Hiring Committee.
Thank you, Chair. So the Public Works Manager position became vacant last Monday, September 9th. So the township hiring policy allows for one member of council, the clerk administrator, and one senior management position to sit on the hiring panel, as well as a subject matter expert if desired. We're recommending that it be myself and two members of council to ensure that we have odd numbers on the hiring panel, in case there's a split vote. So during the February posting, there were internal applicants that applied but didn't have the mandatory credentials of the job description at the time of a CET. So it was discussed with council that we would bring back a job description. Potentially change, the CET being a mandatory credential and being an asset to open up the, ability for others to apply, or for the people who did apply, who potentially had good credentials, just not the CET, qualification. So this evening, a draft job description is in front of you, with the CET being noted as an asset and not a requirement. By changing the education component, we have to score the job based on our pay equity. So the job with a mandatory CET scored at a 743, and removing the mandatory CET scores it as 713. So it doesn't change where it sits on the grid, it just lowers the point closer to the lower level. So the recommendation at this time is to, it's within the 6-month period, just to go back to some of the internal applicants and put them forward for a test. If they're successful in the testing, then we would interview them. If they're not successful in the testing, we would post externally and try and fill the position. So council obviously has a number of options. You can either leave the job description as is, change it as amended this evening. We can go ahead and post internal, external, or bring in some of the internal applicants that had some qualifications but didn't have the CET, and test them first and see where we go from there. Or just post everything out and do the testing and interviewing of new applicants.
Open it up for any questions and comments.
The first go around, was there testing involved or was there only one applicant involved?
There was no testing, we did interviews only, so we would like to move forward with testing and interviews.
What sort of testing would you be recommending?
So the testing that we're recommending is making sure that people can use the computer systems, can write reports, can do some of the functions of the position, of the management position in that relation, and we will potentially test them on some of the looking at engineer drawings and coming up with what needs to be done from that drawing as well.
Any other questions or comments?
I like that option as far as going to the testing option is always is a good way to go, because sometimes having the credentials doesn't necessarily mean everything is there. So I think that's a good option, just to go back to that. I mean, I'd be more than happy to be part of that hiring committee too as well. So I don't know what the interest of that from the members of council, but I definitely would be interested in that too as well. So.
I think that's the best way to go. You can be book smart. There's a difference between book smart and actually being able to facilitate the job. So I think this is a much better way to do it than previous.
Same for me.
So, and share through you. So I do have the test prepared because I'd like to move on this relatively quickly. So I do have it ready to go. So no matter which option you choose, we're still my recommendation would still be to do the testing component. But it is ready to go as well.
So I guess the question would be is if we go ahead and we do the testing and we realize we're gonna, the other option will be make sure that we have a pivot option. So that if the testing doesn't work, then we're not gonna come back to council and say, okay, now we're gonna go back out. We're gonna go back, we're gonna go out right away then at that point to post and
That's right. So if we do option one, I think is the changing the job description and testing internal applicants. So if nobody passes the test, we're gonna go ahead and post. I don't need to bring it back to council. I think that's the understanding.
Exactly.
We're gonna go ahead and post. And then, but I would still like you guys to appoint some committee members. That would be great if we can get that done. And then no matter which way we're going, it's done.
just sort of one more question. How extensive is, like, is it a 30-minute test?
I'm giving an hour and a half. Is what the time frame I'm giving. I think if you know your stuff, you might be half an hour. If you don't, an hour and a half is not gonna be enough.
Okay.
It seems very similar to current government testing. So they do that for a lot of the higher end government positions where they would get a test like this, where they facilitate job requirements and are able to do that. So I think this is a wonderful way to do it.
Well, speak, I'll let you guys. So I'm in agreement to doing the testing first. I think that, the great option is switching to, for us to be in other positions, even down the road, looking at doing the recruitment, shortlisting, doing those people with testing before we actually take the time and invest into doing the interviews, because there is a difference between actually being able to do some of the work that we need and just having credentials, as Jeff had mentioned. And I mean, it's not the first time that I think, Ali, you've received as well, stating that our request of a CET might not necessarily be a requirement for the size of our municipality. So the educational components of additional courses through the roads associations is probably more relevant to our size than to larger municipalities. So there is a difference on that side. So if it's okay, I would put my name forward as well as sitting on the hiring committee. So if you have Jeff asking and my volunteering, and
That's fine.
we're good? Okay, so, yeah. And I think we're in agreement that we're going to go with the option one. And automatically that if none of our current applicants are successful in the testing, that we list automatically for steps. So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council approves the following members of council be appointed to the Public Works Manager Hiring Committee. Deputy Reeve Carroll. Jennings. And that council approves the testing of the internal applicants from the posting in February 2024, and that council approves the change in the job description from a mandatory CET certification to the certification being an asset. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Ellie. And next we have another report by you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the supply and delivery of bulk course, our highway salt, so our winter salt. The tender went out with the county back in 2021. It was for a 3-year supply with the option of 2 additional 1-year extensions. So the pricing is in front of you from the previous years. Now they have provided pricing to be the exact same as last season for the 2024-2025 and then the 2025-2026, which brings us into June of 26 season. The recommendation this date is to go ahead and approve those extensions for a number of reasons. It sets us up for budgeting, and we feel that it's a fair and competitive pricing, as there's multiples of us in on this tender contract.
Okay, any questions? Yeah.
As you were saying, there's not a lot of suppliers out there either. Like last time we did it, like, there's like 2 out there, something that do it, so it's not like it's a big purpose of going in. But I think I agree that the pricing is the right competitive practice.
They didn't even do a CPI index increase, so that was,
That's a weird
it's,
sense.
they're locking us in.
Yeah, that's my one question, but the other question, so who all is in on this stuff?
It's
Just a number of the townships in,
in Lanark County.
okay,
So most of us are in on it.
Okay.
There might be a few that aren't, but most of us are, and with the county. So the county is a depot here as well in the winter, so they keep a truck here. So we have to supply them with this. They use straight salt. We use winter grit, which you're gonna see next, and salt, the 5% mixture in our grit. So the county keeps a truck here, which they use our backhoe to load their trucks, and they plug in here, and we get a stipend from the county.
okay,
And we bill them for the use of the salt and a small markup for administration fees for us looking after it. So really, we normally go with the county because we're with them with a depot being here.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council approve the extension of the contract for the bulk salt delivery with Cargyle for the 2024-25 and 2025-26 seasons at the price of 106.83 a ton. All in favor? And that's carried. And Ali, you have another report.
Thank you. So this is the addition to the agenda. I'm adding it, but we already have it. So if you want me to go out for tender, it'll be for anything that we put into the dome later on, because we fill our dome in September. So this is for the extension of our winter stone dust contract. We did go out to tender for the 2023-2024 season. we saw a price of $18.95 a ton. That's supply delivered, and they also bring the conveyor in and mix the sand and salt together for us and place it into the dome. So the tender allowed for 2 additional 1-year extensions. I'm just recommending a 1-year at this point. It was based on the CPI, all items from June of last year to June of this year, which equated to 2.7%. So the extension price for this year is $19.46 cents per metric ton. Keeping in mind, our tender is for supply of 2,500 metric ton, and we only brought in about 1,200 because we still had half of our dome full from last winter. So at this time, I'm only recommending the 1-year. We'll see what we can discuss with them for an extension next year, depending on pricing, or we'll go to tender. But for this season that we go ahead and approve this and discuss it next year.
Any questions? Okay, moved by Councillor Bass, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council approve the extension of the contract for the supply and delivery of winter stone dust from Thomas Kavanaugh for the 2024-25 season in the amount of $19.46 a metric ton. All in favor? And that is carried. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council approve the minutes of the committee of whole meeting of September 3rd, 2024, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor? And that's carried. With no petition. Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that bylaw 4088-2024 being a bylaw to establish user fees and charges administered by the corporation of the township of Montague. They read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 17th day of September 2024. All in favor? And that's carried. We have no motion, notice of motion, no correspondence for action items. No unfinished business or other business. Questions of our audience? Online. Okay, so moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Reed Carroll, that bylaw 4089-2024 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 17th day of September 2024. All in favor? And it's carried. So moved by Deputy Reed Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council adjourn the regular meeting of September 17th, 2024 at 6:22 p.m. until October 1st, 2024 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
We're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to our committee of the whole. We'll start out with opening the meeting and our land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which this township of Montague is now located, and this meeting is being held with ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin, the Shopping Nation. The adoption agenda, so moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the committee of the whole agenda dated September 17, 2024, be approved as presented this date. All in favor? It's carried. Any disclosures, let me know as we go through this. No delegations in our first report is our wonderful junior planner, Kirsten.
Good evening, council. The report presented this evening is provided to give current council a little bit of background on the development to date and proposed development at 100 Industrial Road, which is in the quote unquote Montague Business Park, which is no longer business park. So the current owner purchased this property from the township in 2009. And the transfer did contain a provision that if the property remained undeveloped or vacant, for 3 years after the date of sale, the township could purchase it back for the original purchase price, I believe, less legal acquisition costs. The township never exercised this option. So in 2015, the owner submitted a site plan application to the township, and the details of the proposed development were very vague. Council, who were the delegated authority for site plans at that time, directed staff that more information was required. So staff did have extensive consultation with the applicant, who also retained an agent to assist him. And the end result was that the proposal was to construct an automotive sales and repair shop. To facilitate this development, he was required to address environmental impacts related to the wetlands on and near the property, as well as stormwater management. This was done, and council directed staff to prepare the required site plan agreement, which was approved, signed in 2017 and registered on title. In 2019, the owner applied for a building permit, and to date, the only construction that has taken place on site is the pouring of a cement pad. So the owner has met with planning staff to advise that development of this lot is on hold for now. Staff have advised him that when he's ready to proceed, he will be required to submit an application for a new site plan agreement, as the 2017 one was only valid for 2 years. He will also need to obtain a new septic permit. His previous one expired and is revoked, and apply for a new building permit because it also has been revoked. He has also been advised that the studies and the plans that he completed in 2017 would need to be updated or redone, as development is considered based on the current official plan and zoning bylaw policies, as well as the current requirements of comment agencies such as MTO and the railway, and of course RBCA. Now, the owner has advised that he wishes to move forward with the development of the adjacent vacant lot that he purchased from the township in 2009. So again, that one is vacant. He's been provided with the required application form for a site plan agreement, and the clerk and junior planner are delegated authority now for site plan agreements. So if and when he does submit some information to us, we will review that accordingly and provide direction as to what is required to support it. And if there are any concerns, we will definitely bring a report to council. Any questions?
That's it.
That's it.
All right, I open up the council for any questions. No, I mean, is it too late to, or is it like we can't exercise the buyback? It's past that, right? So as far as that goes, we'll go through this
There
process.
is like a statute of limitations, so it's.
It's past that process too as well. That's good. All right, thank you, Chris. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council receives the proposed development of 100 Industrial Road report as information as presented this date. All in favor? That's good. Person is not going anywhere. Because we're gonna go digital.
Let's go digital.
Let's go digital.
Let's go digital.
Take it away.
Okay, so the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT, is seeking comments for their proposal to amend the rules of procedures under the Ontario Land Tribunal Act. There are a few changes proposed, and the report does have a link in it that you can go and look at the red line document. But the report before you this evening relates specifically to the requirement to submit appeals through the e-file portal. The Planning Act sets out appeal rights and processes for each type of appealable matter. Currently, if an appeal is received by an approval authority, so that could be council, that could be a committee of adjustment, that is not using the e-file portal, the appellant submits the documents and the required payment to the approval authority, and then the approval authority is responsible for compiling additional information and then couriering a submission package to the OLT. Using the e-file portal allows all parties to submit their documents electronically, including the appellant's payment. And the benefits of using this portal are laid out in the report. They include mandatory fields and pre-population of data, an assurance that the correct and most current form is being filled out. There are improved efficiencies by using this resource. Municipalities have the ability to use the portal as well to look for precedent and reference materials. So staff have reached out to other municipalities in Leonard County for feedback on using the portal, and everyone has indicated that it is very user-friendly. They've had no issues. I would say that it is very likely that e-filing is going to become mandatory. So staff are looking for direction from council to just go ahead and register for this process so that we're prepared for this inevitability. You know, you always hope that you're not going to need to use the e-filing portal. But I think it's going to happen. That is it. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions at all?
Good.
Yeah, why would we not do it?
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of chuckle a little bit because at the last meeting I talked about, you know, applicants for planning applications having difficulty using an electronic method for getting documents from the registry office. This is potentially going to be a bit burdensome for an appellant, but at least they can contact, there's a helpline that they can hopefully get through to someone quickly if they need assistance. So.
It was a riveting read, the OLT rules and practices for sure.
Was it?
So, yeah, I think that's great. Hopefully, like you say, like, we don't ever have to also use it. So that would be the ideal. So, yes. So moved by Councillor Johnson and second by Reeve Jennings that council direct staff to register the Township of Montague as an e-file service provider with the Ontario Land Tribunal. All in favor? That's great. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Montague water sewer system that Allison will talk about.
Thank you, Chair. So in front of you this evening, we're asking just for a change in the use of the modernization reserves to use administration reserves. So back in 2023, at the committee of the whole meeting, whenever council or committee received a report to award the RFP to CKA, Colburn and Campbell Architects Inc. for the new building. A portion of the payment for phase 1, 2, and 3 was to be funded from the modernization reserves. And now we're asking for that to change for a couple of reasons. So we've had some substantial surpluses the last couple of years that can fund this portion of the CKA bill, which has not been billed to us yet because a lot of that was finalized early this year. And we're looking at modernization of the water and sewer system in Adirondacks for us. So what that means is we're looking at alternative solutions to an operator or having an operator that's also a part-time fire chief, which would be very difficult to replace in the future. Looking at changing our system to potentially have a location where all of the reads are coming from a one kind of computer unit. So we'd like to be able to look into this a little further. In this report, we do have some raw data as far as some pricing that's only been received from one contractor who could provide this service. But we would like to look at some additional solutions. We did meet with the MOE today and they potentially are going to offer us some alternative solutions as well. But we would like to have that modernization fund that was provided to each municipality during COVID to do these types of things. So basically, right now, we go into people's homes to read water, and with COVID, Miles can speak to this as well. We lost a lot of the homes that we had access to. I think he's down to about 4. And as I think change of ownership and things like that happen, people don't have to let us in their homes. So MOE did bring up some alternative solutions though today as well that might be of some interest to us. So we would like to bring something back to council with budget for the water sewer budget discussions on potentially what we could do. But by changing the modernization reserve for us to be able to access this, it wouldn't have a direct impact on the 107 users of that system. The modernization reserve would be used. Instead of us having to pull from capital or put that cost onto them if we have to make some changes. But it is our recommendation to start looking at modernizing and or looking at a long-term solution for this as opposed to waiting for our position to either retire or leave and be stuck kind of in that situation. So like I said, at this point in time, we're just asking that we switch the use of the modernization reserve to the admin reserve. Because we did put an extra 260,000 into that reserve last year, more than that was from surplus. That was additional funds that were not accounted for. And we do anticipate to have another surplus this year because our investments are doing quite well again this year.
Thank you also. I'll put it up for questions.
I just got the one, you were saying Miles couldn't get into the houses. Is that for to read the meters? Is that for
Water.
No,
just to
It's
test?
for
it?
testing.
Just for testing.
our water meters are just a drive around. It's
Yeah,
a
so
unit
they're
that
not-
reads it. It's for testing water.
And you have to get water just out of the sink? Is that what you do? Or,
Correct, out of the tap.
so you can't take it from outside of the tap?
You can on Mondays, but on Wednesdays it goes into Conducin to
Oh,
be lab tested. So on a Wednesday, it has to come out of a tap.
A tap.
In a facility.
I was just curious. I
Yeah,
didn't.
so currently at this time, we do the Lanark paramedic building because it's a business. It's easy to get into to sample. But again, the challenges right now are, you know, I'm well known in Anne Arundel, so I'm able to get in. But if something was to ever happen and somebody else took over, you know, maybe they might not have that same relationship. So we're kind of really looking for the future here. is
That's
what we're
good.
looking to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe.
I think we just don't let them retire.
There we go. We can pass a while.
Yeah. But if this is, in all reality, this is gonna have to be done at some point. So I don't 100% support it.
And this isn't the full modernization money that we've received. We've
No.
used it for a lot of other projects.
Yes.
So this amount being used to offset a cost that is going to make the municipality keep moving forward makes sense as well.
And chair through you with that. We're not even saying that we're gonna use that full 128 for this. You're gonna actually see in budget that 15 is gonna be used for a different modernization in the fire department that's needed. But we like to kind of keep 100,000 of that to potentially use in that situation.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, Miles has got a great job at that. It's like an everyday thing too as well. So I'd say, I mean, be commended for doing that for sure, but it's not sustainable. We need to have a plan because we can't force him to stay here forever. So I think this is great that we've exhausted some other and continue to look at different options. I think this is another great, another good option to start exploring so we can figure out a more sustainable solution down the road. So thank you for this. Thank you for Miles also to continue to make sure that the water is tested and the water is safe and Anne Arundel too as well. So. Moved by Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Navas, that council approved the change in reserve from the modernization to administration reserve use for the $120,368 for the RFP-AD 2023-02. And further, the council directs staff to bring the financial options and impacts of the 2025 water sewer budget discussions. Okay, we're very quick. Our last one on the agenda is the very draft of the roads need study, and Allison will talk extensively, I'm sure, about this.
So thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I want to make that very clear to council right at this point in time that this is a very initial document to kind of begin the process. There's still a lot of finessing, a lot of discussions to be had still, and a lot of information to be included in the document, but we want to get the document, so we have a public meeting set for next week. We just wanted to get this really initial document to council. And then for the public open house next week, people can see what the roads scored, where they're kind of sitting. They can speak to the consultant about safety concerns, about all of those good things, so that all of that information, which I will be at the meeting to take note and get all that information as well, can be taken in, including council's comments for a more final draft to be developed and brought forward to council. So with this, my report has some information. So our previous roads need study was done in 2019. And every 5 years we update it. So with the 19 roads study, council decided to make a change in the gravel allocations for the betterment of the conditions of the gravel roads. And you will see that in the updated study, that the average rating of the gravel roads has increased slightly due to that change. So along with that, I include the changes from the capital allocations towards roads. So from 2018 to 2023, it's been 350,000 set aside, which was 150,000 for equipment and 200,000 for road portion. Last year, or the 2024 budget, talking last year, because we're already looking at 2025. So the equipment portion stayed at 150, but we bumped the road portion to 250 because we were able to we re-tendered in 2024 for gravel. We got competitive pricing, which allowed us to set our gravel rate down to 275 from the 315. So about a $40,000 savings, and that will be good. Our tender was for 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, with all of the roads listed and indicated for the gravel application for those 4-year period. So we have that, and that is set, a set schedule for us for up until the end of 2027. With that, in the draft roads need study, you're going to note that they had accounted for hardtop roads, a $474,000 allocation. That's the 250 from our reserve allocation, plus the 100,000 from OSIF and the 124,000 of our gas tax approximately to get, for a total of 474 per year, based on keeping a current level of service. There are a number of things that should be addressed or could be addressed from the roads need study, including developing a policy for upgrading of roadways from a gravel surface to a hard surface, which I know that this council has had discussions about, but I think that is really something that we need to start looking at and developing to move forward with those types of discussions, because I know it's going to come up in the public session, but we need that data and we need a policy that it has to meet the criteria to even have those discussions, because we have a hard time funding the replacement of the hard surface roads that we have. Calcium application, I know that will also come up as a level of service discussion on alternative methods, applications, double applications, all those types of things. So I think again, that there should be a policy. We should have something in relation to that to make it simple. Alternative preservation methods, so extending life, regular crack sealing, which we don't have in our budget, paved shoulders to prevent breaking of roadsides depending on the roads that are being paved, regular shoulder maintenance, so actually having a shoulder machine come and place granular to keep the roadsides from breaking off, and then the improved ditching of roadways to allow better water drainage and allow us to keep the crown on the road better whenever we're grading. So with that, none of these things are discussed in the roads need study that will need to be in there, and that's where we need feedback, because I know that there's an example of safety. We've had people from Pinery come in and note that there's some ditching that's very deep and potentially guardrails are required. So those are the things that we're hoping to get back from the public session, to get that information, to be able to have those conversations with council, and what does that look like from a 10-year financial perspective. So with that, when we come back with a more draft final version, council will need to determine whether they would like to set a flat financial goal, so basically just status quo. If they want to set an increasing financial goal, so that maybe it's that we're slowly increasing what we're putting to roads each year. Or doing some kind of a service level base, so that you're saying, okay, we want all roads paved in 20 years, that type of situation. So with that, we have reviewed the documents, with the consultants several times, and there's been some changes made, but there's still some additional changes, so I have noted some of the issues. But in the same sense, there's still some questions, and I think the public will have it as well, is that, the method for proposing what roads get completed, the top priority was high traffic roads, but there seems to be roads that are not high traffic roads in the first 5 years of the plan. Gravel roads are not included. Again, we are set with our gravel roads out to the end of 2027. And we personally feel that the public works manager probably is the best suited to develop a 10-year plan for that, because our boots on the ground know the roads the best. Uncertainty of pricing on the repair type, so I think there's some questioning on the pricing used. The traffic counts, it's indicated in there that there wasn't a lot of change. There was some substantial change on certain roads for traffic counts, so that will be updated. The suitability of roads, surfaces depending on the traffic, so that's not indicated in that report. So basically that if it's a high, large truck traffic road, what is the best surface? So normally, in a sense, with a large, so if you have a lot of tandems or triaxles, surface treatment's not gonna look like gravel, like asphalt. So those types of things should be indicated on the type of traffic. Now that we're able to get that type of data, we should be including that in our roads need study of the type of traffic. That's why we got those units, is because that was important to us. To make those better decisions, so that we're not just throwing money at something that's not the right application for the project. So, with that, again, a very initial document. Next Wednesday evening is the public open house, where we will be taking feedback from the community, but we're also asking for council to provide written comment and feedback, so that we can work with the consultants to get a really good document back to everyone. I'm not saying it's gonna be a document that everybody agrees with, because everybody has different perspectives on which road should be done and when, and all those things, but that is a fair, open, transparent, process. So that is our intent, and that is where we are at this time. So at this point in time, we're just recommending that council accept just this as information, kind of comment, provide that to us. We will get information and comment back from the public. And we're also gonna post online for anybody who can't attend, that they can board. And then we will work with the consultant to put together a more fulsome document to bring back to council end of October into November.
You also. So I guess the biggest thing with this is, I mean, we can receive this as information. We can chat about it. We can go through it quick to say, like, maybe things that jumped out to council. My biggest thing was, and about this too as well, I don't want us to be pointing out things and Allison writing things down as we go. I think if we discuss things and there's things that we've all noticed, and we did have a chat about it, that we can submit that ourselves after the fact, saying, this is what I saw, this is what I see, everything else, but I mean, if council is obliged, and it's, you know, we haven't been here that long, so we could go through it quickly to, if there's any sort of thoughts or processes at all, but I'll see what council, yeah.
Sorry, Chair. So I just want to make a comment that the consultants will be in the public open house answering questions. This is not mine. They're on vacation this week, and that's why they're not in front of you this evening, and I am just doing this. So they will be at the public open house, and they will be at the next meeting for you guys to ask questions and for them to present their report as well. So I just wanted to.
That's a big part of it too, as well, because we would have preferred to have the consultants here to have that effect, because this is, yes, Allison saying that, here's what has been given so far with some feedback. So. Where do you want to go from here as far as a group? Do we want to discuss it a little bit? Do we want to?
For me, because they aren't here, I think it would be easier for us to wait. For me anyway. Because if we're gonna ask questions, we're gonna put her on the spot.
And we don't want her to answer any questions.
Exactly.
It's more of just like, I mean, like, I know when I go through it, I think she alluded to a lot of it too, as well as talking about the counts. We didn't have quick counts back in 2020. We want to make sure we're questioning that too as well. I think it's making sure we're all on the same page, maybe too, as well as we go to that discussion too as well. Like, I think the counts exactly right. We didn't have counts before, they were estimates, now we have actual counts. And I think that's a very valid point, and the counts have changed in those higher traffic roads. I think that's a very, a great point that was brought up too as well. I like, everybody knows I like to talk about these kind of things, but but I think there's lots of things of the pricing, exactly what, there's a lot of there's the 6 pages talking about, the different types of roads, basically the proposed maintenance strategy, but there's nothing in there from the consultant saying like, this is where you should be doing it, and I think that's what Allison alluded to too as well. I think it's just extra filler in my opinion with those strategies in place, because I'm looking for a document that has strategies, and I think all in council are looking for a document that has strategies. I think there's, and then going through obviously a lot of different roads, I mean, there's errors of one road that's a gravel road that is basically saying we're gonna not upgrade it, we're gonna repave it. Well, it's a gravel road, it's the wrong part of that road. So like, if we notice those things, we want to make sure that all eyes are on deck, or you can say to us, well, that we're looking at it quite thoroughly. Because those questions might come up during that process, but I mean, I'm game for waiting until the.
And that's it, because this is a draft, as Allison has said, public feedback's gonna come in. Allison has picked up on a lot of the key
Yes.
errors in the report and has addressed them to the consultant. So any additional concerns that I think we find, we should be emailing to Allison so she can add it to it. But also then when the consultants here at the open house, we also then address it to
So
them.
we'll go down that route.
I think that's the best route, is that we just wait till we have.
Is the consultant going to be addressing the errors and providing any paperwork prior to the meeting?
So,
The question, the reason I ask the question is because it will cut down and mitigate some of the questions from the public if they have a better document to go on.
So Chair, so I have been back and forth with them. Again, the lead is on holidays, but I will be sending it to another staff person as well to give them that opportunity to get it updated in that sense, and to have their boards printed with the more updated version. So in relation to the strategies, you will note beside all of them that it says R1, R2, and then whenever you look at the maintenance plan, it's based on,
Yes.
some of them are in there, so some of them are not things that we do, and that's why they're not included, and that's where we're saying are the roads that we can do this, and what's the strategy and what should
That's
be
what we're
done.
looking for,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
exactly,
so, yes, I would be happy to take back any comments that you have, because I'm going to forward off my additional comments, 'cause every time I look, I have more. To them prior to next week, to give them that opportunity.
Just so they don't get beaten up so bad.
Yeah, exactly,
The
exactly.
more answers and the better the document is, the less public can. beat them
Keeping in
up.
mind though, not everybody's going to agree with how something is scored.
No,
So just keep that in mind, but I think the feedback is really what we're looking for, is the people who live on those roads that drive on them every day. What their comments are.
I think that's it. And I think one last point is to talk about too as well is, and we want to make sure we talk about it with the public too as well, is when the gravel was upgraded or more gravel was put on that 4-year cycle from 5 years ago. We have seen a condition, I know it's tough, people might say, I don't know if I've seen a condition, but we're starting to see. The results of that too as well, but it's also gonna take another 4 years and another. And I think exactly what Allison was talking about was also looking at internally for the gravel, because I don't think we're done with the gravel yet. Because we talked about a lot of different plans of saying we're on a 4-year cycle, but does it make sense for a road that is seeing 40 cars a day be on the same cycle as a road that's seeing 250 cars a day? Should there maybe be a 3-year and a 5-year and a 6-year, like all of that discussion, which I think I think it's a very good idea for our internal staff that have that idea to look at that. And I think that's a really big key about our gravel roads is that we've had a plan 4 years ago that has started the process of making them a little bit better, but looking at different options and how we can make them even a little bit better as we go to as well. That was a very valid point, and where we can go from that, and that can be part of a discussion point that not necessarily be touched by the consultant about that, but it's something that we should be aware of and thinking about and talking about too, as well as we're looking at and supporting where maybe the staff can go with that too as well, so.
And sorry, Chair, just to piggyback on that is that's a great point, because the hard surface roads don't change drastically from spring to fall, but the gravel roads do. So at the point in time when they did their review, we had an early spring this year. So things were dried up. Roads that normally have soft spots and issues didn't have them when they did their review. So I think that's where it's important for internal staff, and as you said, the different traffic on those gravel roads and what that looks like for an application. So I think that is really a task that should be done in-house, from our perspective, because when they're looking at it, it's just a snapshot. And if that snapshot is dry and hard, it's not necessarily the true snapshot of what that gravel road looks like at its worst condition. So the intent was for it to be in April. We had an early spring and things were somewhat dried out when they came through. So we had chatted about some of those roads and they didn't see the conditions that we see on those roads in the spring. So that's where I think it's important for the boots on the ground to be heavily involved in these types of things.
But we're gonna continue to collect that data because we have all of those units that are out there collecting that data, telling us what the traffic is, how big they are, exactly what you're saying. So I think that's, I think we're really to say that we're moving forward in that stuff, but we really want the feedback and we want the comments too as well from everybody. And make sure that we make this the best of the best, because this is a pretty critical piece of document that we do, so.
Yeah, and we want to keep projecting in the forward motion.
Yeah.
That we're starting to see. So, and I did have another conversation with another consultant engineer that's familiar with our area. And he made the comment that we actually are in a pretty good position in Montague. That he thinks that compared to other municipalities of similar size, that we're actually in a pretty good place. So we need to continue to do that and make sure that this plan is reflective of that.
Well said. Anything else? Good, all right. So, thank you, Allison. That was gonna be a biggie. So moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, the council provide comments on the draft weed study report from this date to the clerk administrator treasurer prior to September 27, 2024. And the council direct the clerk administrator treasurer to receive written comment for the public until October 4th, 2024, based on the draft report presented this date and open house. And further, the council direct the clerk administrator treasurer to provide these comments and concerns to the consultant to discuss and review prior to presenting the final draft to council in October and November. All in favor? And that's carried. We got no reports, committees, no petitions, no motions. Anybody have any unfinished business or want to talk about something else? No, seeing none. Do you have anything from the audience, from the online world? Space somewhere, nowhere. Okay, sounds good. This is a lot quicker than I thought it was gonna be tonight, so I don't know what the thought was. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson that the committee of the whole meeting for September 17th, 2024 now be adjourned at 7 o'clock on the dot. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see everybody again in a week, I guess.